For 40 years in the business, I've never failed a single time, so everyone respectfully calls me old woman. But who would have known that behind that facade, I was once just a pitiful girl, adrift in life. 40 years ago, I was just a barefoot street child, collapsing from exhaustion. Just as I was about to freeze to death, a passing couple took me to their small diner. My name at the time was Hornclaw. They fed me until I was full, and when they learned I had no place to go, the kind wife let me stay and wash dishes, as she was pregnant and couldn't do heavy work. They didn't pay me, but I could eat as many hamburgers as I wanted. The husband, Ji-woo, was very mysterious. He often disappeared for weeks. When I asked him curiously, he just said he was going bug exterminating, though I didn't understand anything at all. Yet, Ji-woo's cold, handsome appearance made my heart flutter. Once, while gazing at him, I accidentally cut my hand. As Ji-woo was gently bandaging my wound, his wife suddenly returned. I quickly hid my hand behind my back. The diner sold hamburgers and pizza, so American soldiers often frequented it. One of them took notice of the young, beautiful waitress. One night, after the diner closed, he snuck in and intended to assault Hornclaw. Unexpectedly, I resisted fiercely, so he beat me mercilessly. In desperation, I bit his leg, but that only enraged him further. He intended to kill me. Fortunately, I grabbed a stick and stabbed him to death. Afterward, I fainted from exhaustion and panic. When Ji-woo returned, I woke up with a start. He discovered I had killed someone, but showed no fear or scolding. Instead, Ji-woo confessed that he had even killed his own grandmother. Then he said, from now on, my codename would be Nail. It turned out Ji-woo was a member of an underground organization specializing in eliminating the scum of society. From then on, Ji-woo trained me to become an assassin. Surprisingly, I was a true prodigy. The number of depraved men I had eliminated was countless. Over 40 years passed, and the Hornclaw of yesteryear was now a white-haired old woman. Despite 4 decades as an assassin, I had never failed a single mission, becoming a legend in the company. Everyone respectfully called me Old Woman. Looking at my frail appearance, no one could guess I was an assassin. One day, on a crowded subway, a despicable man tried to steal a priority seat from a pregnant woman. When she protested, he hurled insults, spat, and even pushed her down. Unbeknownst to anyone, he was Hornclaw's current target. Silently, I drew the poisoned hairpin from my bun. As the crowd surged towards the exit, I quickly pricked him, swiftly and discreetly, so no one noticed. A few seconds later, the scoundrel collapsed without a word. Mission accomplished. I went to the restroom, washed the poison off the hairpin to erase all traces. But then, my hands began to tremble violently. I staggered, and then collapsed to the floor. Perhaps Hornclaw was suffering from some illness. Meanwhile, at the bug extermination company, a distressed mother was pleading with Director Sun to kill a drug lord to avenge her son. But he coldly refused. Instead, Director Sun assigned Assassin John another target, a wife who wanted her CEO husband dead for having an affair with another woman. Mr. Jang wondered if infidelity was a crime worthy of death. Perhaps Director Sun had received a hefty sum for this job. He asked Sun if he had consulted the old woman. Director Sun replied that breaking the heart of someone who had been with you for 30 years was an unforgivable sin. Moreover, the company needed money to operate. Nevertheless, Jang firmly refused to take the job. Meanwhile, Hornclaw discovered an injured old dog lying in the garage. Although it looked very pitiful, I didn't want to take on any more burdens, so I left. Due to the nature of my profession, Hornclaw lived a completely solitary life. No family, no friends, no one even knew my true identity. My hair wasn't entirely white, but I deliberately wore a completely white wig to look older. I sat and watched an old movie for a while, then started writing a mission report about today's assassination. But my hands trembled uncontrollably, preventing me from finishing. That night, I couldn't sleep, constantly thinking about the poor dog. Finally, I took it to the veterinary hospital for treatment. The surgery went smoothly, and Hornclaw intended to leave the dog there and go. But the vet warned that the dog was too old, shelters wouldn't take it, and adoption was impossible. If left behind, it would be euthanized. The best option was for me to call the shelter myself. The doctor said that if the rescue were called, they wouldn't refuse. Hornclaw stared at the old, abandoned dog, seeing a reflection of herself. In the end, I decided to take it home, at least for a while. Meanwhile, a young man with messy hair was being forced by a gang to sell his kidney. The closer he got to the location, the more he trembled. But it was too late to turn back. The organ harvesting site was a warehouse at the port, where a surgeon had already prepared the operating table. The gang leader even tried to entice him to sell his corneas for 3 million won, but the young man replied contemptuously, 3 million? That's dirt cheap. Spectacle frames have gone up in price, but corneas are still the same price as 10 years ago. Then, unexpectedly, he made his move. With brutal efficiency, he took down the gang members effortlessly. The boss knelt on the ground, begging for his life. The young man coldly revealed that he had killed Dr. Kim, the boss's rival. Now, he would send him to hell to reunite with the doctor. But he didn't kill him quickly. With a precise cut, he deeply incised the nerve-rich armpit area, ensuring the boss would suffer a painful death. After finishing, the young man drove away, but then realized Director Sun was following him. He weaved through the streets, trying to shake him off. Just when he thought he had escaped, he suddenly rammed his car into Sun's car. "Why do you always like to meddle in other people's business?" he snapped. Director Sun calmly admitted that he knew about his recent killings, and even the previous ones. He had been following him for a long time. When the young man threatened to kill him, Sun simply handed him a business card, telling him to work for him. The young man smirked. "My price is very high. Can you afford it?" Meanwhile, Hornclaw maintained her routine. Every morning before dawn, I would go for a run. At 65, I was still very agile. After exercising, I went to the bug extermination company. Right at the entrance, I inadvertently ran into the mother struggling with the security guard. The mother cried and screamed, demanding that the company kill a man named Han Sung due to avenge her son. When the assassins saw Hornclaw walk in, they all stood up and bowed respectfully to me. I submitted my report on the latest mission to the coordinator, Hei Wu. Hei Wu carefully asked if I had erased all traces, if I had been caught on camera, or seen by any witnesses. This client was too difficult. They insisted on eliminating the target in a crowded place. Hornclaw's self-esteem was wounded. I said that when I felt I was no longer capable, I would withdraw myself. When I asked about the mother at the door, Hei Wu explained that the son's girlfriend had been tricked by addicts and died from an overdose. When the son went there looking for her, he was beaten to the point of being in a vegetative state. The case was too complex, so Director Sun refused. Hei Wu also asked me to get a health checkup, as Director Sun had reminded everyone to strictly follow procedures. Meanwhile, Director Sun was introducing the company to a curly-haired man named Seok Jin. He said they didn't kill senselessly. Their mission was to eliminate the scum-destroying society so innocent people could live in peace. But Seok Jin didn't care much for justice and was about to leave. Director Sun quickly stopped him, but was suddenly pinned down and threatened with his life. Just then, Hornclaw appeared. I forced him to release Director Sun. Director Sun begged me to let Seok Jin go, but I still gave him a beating. After leaving the company, Hornclaw quietly went for a health checkup, but I hid my trembling hands from the doctor. When the doctor announced that my spinal cord had a problem, Hornclaw just quietly nodded and asked him to keep it a secret from the company. The doctor had no cure, only advising me not to overwork. But I knew well that rest had never been an option for me. A girl broke into the home of a paralyzed old man and stole all his valuable jewelry. She thought everything had gone smoothly. While gloating, Mr. Jang suddenly held an axe to her neck. It turned out this wasn't the first time this girl had targeted the elderly. Last time, she had even killed an old woman. That's why she was on the purge list. Mr. Jang forced her to drink until she passed out. Then, he drove to a deserted stretch of railway. In just a few minutes, the train would crush her body. But things didn't go as planned. A schoolgirl happened to walk by. When she saw Mr. Jang's back, she mistook him for her father and called out loudly. Mr. Jang feared the girl was in danger, so he had no choice but to save the thief. At that moment, the girl also saw the thief in the car and realized this was a deliberate murder. Meanwhile, Seok Jin had killed the adulterous CEO. This was the mission Mr. Jang had previously refused. The next morning, when Hornclaw returned from her run, my dog jumped on me, probably hungry because I had forgotten to feed it. When Hornclaw went to the store to buy food for it, I happened to hear the news on TV. The police were looking for a suspect who had tried to stage a murder as an accident. It turned out that girl had immediately gone to the police station to report the crime. Director Sun was then forced to make a difficult decision: eliminate Mr. Jang. Although he had dedicated his life to exterminating bugs for the company, rules were rules. No matter how loyal a person was, once exposed, they still had to be killed. Surprisingly, Hornclaw volunteered for this mission. Hei Wu only worried that I couldn't do it because of my age. Just then, Baek Jin appeared. He reported completing the mission to kill the chairman. But the mission only required retrieving the ring, yet he brought back a pile of fingers. Nevertheless, Director Sun was very satisfied with him. That evening, Hornclaw quickly identified her target. Mr. Jang was visiting the resting place of his daughter's ashes, who had passed away 10 years ago. The day before, when the little girl called out, "Dad!" he felt as if he was seeing his daughter again. That moment deeply moved him to the point of becoming careless and making a mistake. Mr. Jang had once been guided and cared for by Hornclaw like a younger brother, but once he made a mistake that endangered the company, I couldn't go easy on him anymore. Unexpectedly, he struck first and quickly fled. Hornclaw immediately jumped into her car and gave chase. Suddenly, a motorcycle sped towards her from the opposite direction, forcing me to swerve and panic. I accidentally turned onto a narrow side road. Mr. Jang sighed in relief, thinking he had escaped. Suddenly, Hornclaw turned off her headlights. I silently approached and rammed my car directly into his at the intersection. The collision sent his car flying off the road and rolled down the slope. Hornclaw stepped out to check and saw Mr. Jang lying motionless, seemingly not breathing, but he suddenly sprang up, pinned me down, and began to strangle me. I grabbed a rock and fought back, causing him to fall. Both drew their weapons and lunged at each other. Taking advantage of Hornclaw's distraction, Mr. Jang suddenly threw dirt in my face. Then he pinned me against the car hood. Just when I thought I was about to die, Seok-jin suddenly appeared and stabbed Mr. Jang in the back. It turned out he had also been assigned by Director Sun to eliminate him. Baek-shin mocked me for being old and slow, saying that's why he had to take matters into his own hands. Then he turned and walked away, leaving the final blow to Hornclaw. By this point, Mr. Jang had accepted his fate. He was ready to reunite with his daughter in the afterlife. But Hornclaw hesitated, unable to kill him. So he took my hand and plunged the blade into his own neck. Perhaps throughout my years as an assassin, this was the first time Hornclaw felt such deep pain in her heart. After everything ended, I quickly got into the car and drove to the hospital, but too much blood was flowing from the wound in my side, and I gradually lost consciousness. The car swerved, nearly causing an accident. Fortunately, I managed to brake in time and pull over to the side of the road. My hands trembled as I opened the first aid kit. I disinfected the wound myself, then took out a surgical clamp and stitched it up, then bandaged it tightly, but the blood wouldn't stop flowing. My vision began to blur. At this moment, I saw Jiwoo sitting beside me. Just like in the old days, he told me not to be soft-hearted, no matter who the person was. He said I was injured because I had hesitated. In a moment of distraction, the car swerved and hit the curb. I only managed to open the door and crawl out before fainting. In a daze, memories from the past resurfaced in Hornclaw's mind. A mission I had been on with Jiwoo. That day, I was the one who killed the target, while he single-handedly fought a group of bodyguards. Although both had completed the mission, when Jiwoo returned home, both his wife and young child had been killed. Hornclaw collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably, while Jiwoo stood frozen, the pain too immense for him to vocalize. Back in the present, Hornclaw slowly regained consciousness when someone touched her. Instinctively, I sprang up, smashed a water bottle, and held a sharp piece of glass to that person's neck. It turned out to be the vet from the other day. Dr. Kang calmly explained that he was the one who had taken me to the hospital after seeing me unconscious on the road. My injuries were very severe, and I had almost died. He had also carefully brought all my belongings. Dr. Kang saw my hand bleeding from the glass shard. He quickly took my hand and gently bandaged it. That gesture made me let down my guard. A familiar feeling returned. Dr. Kang's actions reminded me of how Jiwoo used to care for me. When Director Sun learned Hornclaw was injured, he criticized me for being too old. I replied that a knife might look dull, but it could still be used effectively. I saw that he was now indiscriminately recruiting homeless people off the streets and carelessly assigning them jobs. Our job is to eliminate the bad guys in society. This is a sacred mission. For example, wiping out addicts who have deceived and harmed children. The missions Director Sun refused were actually the ones the company should be doing. It turned out Director Sun didn't dare to oppose the drug traffickers because they were part of a nationwide mafia gang. If he sent someone to kill their boss, every member of the company would be hunted down and killed. Perhaps now Hornclaw regretted putting him in charge as director. On the way home, I was stopped by Seok-jin, who mocked me. It turned out that night he had followed me and seen everything. He saw me collapse by the roadside, and the vet take me to the hospital for treatment. Hornclaw had left such a witness. If the company found out, I would be eliminated. Just like Mr. Jang. Hearing this, Hornclaw became angry, and pulled out a knife, threatening him. I warned him that if he wanted to live long, he should know his place. It would be best if I never saw his face again. That night, Seok-jin secretly broke into the company to find a file. It turned out his father had been assassinated by the company for corruption. Seok-jin was the first to discover his father's body. The incident caused such severe psychological trauma that he had to be admitted to a mental hospital for 2 years. The file revealed that the person who killed his father was none other than Hornclaw. Elsewhere, Hornclaw suddenly woke up in fright and immediately grabbed a knife to defend herself. but it turned out to be just the dog scratching at the door. Early the next morning, I still went for my usual run, even though my wound occasionally ached. I followed Dr. King out of curiosity, and only then did I learn he had a young daughter named Henny. His wife had died due to a surgeon's error. Dr. King often stood in front of the hospital holding a sign, demanding that the surgeon explain and apologize, but the hospital director didn't care and just sent people to chase him away. Dr. King often took Henny to her grandmother's fruit store. The old woman said her daughter had been bedridden after the surgery and died 5 years later. Since then, Kang had suffered from insomnia every night. Hornclaw saw him and quickly turned away, but he had seen me and chased after me. If it were the Hornclaw of old, I would have knocked him out and killed him on the spot. But this time, even though I had the poisoned hairpin ready in my hand, I couldn't bring myself to be ruthless. Dr. Kang didn't understand why I had come to see his family, but he believed I was a good person, because only a good person would help save an abandoned old dog. He asked why I didn't come to the hospital. Hornclaw replied that I had been fired by the company. Hearing this, Dr. Kang offered to bandage my wound. Then he asked for my name. But when he saw I didn't answer, he quietly left. On his way out, he ran into Seok Jin. When Seok Jin met Director Sun, he asked about Hornclaw. Director Sun said that in over 40 years, she had never made a mistake. It was a perfect record, almost unbelievable. That's why Hornclaw was both admirable and terrifying. New assassins might be fast, but they were nowhere near her level. The company's founder was Ji Woo. After his wife and child were murdered, he went alone to the gang's hideout for revenge. By himself, he killed 28 thugs. But human strength has its limits. When Hornclaw arrived, Ji Woo was dying, so I killed all the remaining ones to avenge him. From then on, I changed my codename from Nail to Claw, but that was in the past. Now Director Sun only saw me as a useless old woman who needed to be removed from the company. Hornclaw named the old dog Mudang, which means burden. It was an ironic way to reflect the abandoned, feeble state of both the dog and myself. One day, while walking Mudang, I happened to meet Dr. Kang and his daughter again. The little girl really liked the dog and happily walked it. Dr. Kang recounted the story of a doctor's mistake that caused his wife's wrongful death. Even worse, the hospital director nonchalantly said that errors were normal. Hornclaw asked him why he didn't kill him. Dr. King didn't answer, but instead invited me to lunch. Initially, Hornclaw firmly refused. But because Henny insisted so sweetly, I finally agreed. At that moment, I finally introduced myself as Hornclaw, which means claw. Henny kept insisting I come see her performance at school. Suddenly, someone broke a bowl and ran away. It turned out to be Seok Jin. He was still secretly following Hornclaw. He went to Dr. Kang's hospital and asked him difficult questions. Baek Jin said that an old hunting dog had started acting strangely. It was doing things it had never done before. Why is the dog doing such things? Dr. King replied, the dog has been moved by small things. It became more fearful and craved things it had never cared about before. Then Dr. Kang asked to leave, as he knew this man was not a good person. Seok Jin didn't give up and tried to approach Dr. Kang's mother-in-law and daughter. Hornclaw saw this and immediately warned him. If he dared to harm a single hair on Dr. Kang or his relatives, he'd better be careful. At this point, Baek Jin praised Henny. He was surprised that an ordinary little girl could captivate someone as cold as Hornclaw. Hearing this, Hornclaw asked him not to harm innocent people. I would retire on my own so I wouldn't cause trouble, but he still wondered, would I retire just for one person? When people get old, do they suddenly feel the urge to protect someone? Hornclaw didn't answer, only asking what his true purpose was. But Seok Jin didn't reply, he just left. It had been a very long time since Hornclaw allowed herself to have someone to protect. Back then, when Ji Woo's wife and child were murdered, he had promised to find Hornclaw a new identity so I could start a new life. But he said, if I wanted to stay with the company, I was absolutely not allowed to have anything I needed to protect. After taking care of his wife and child's funeral, Ji Woo decided to seek revenge. Before he left, he gave Hornclaw a hairpin and told me to take care of the company. That was the hairpin Hornclaw had always carried with her to this day. The next morning, Hornclaw threw a bomb into a trash can in front of the hospital. In the chaos, I pretended to accidentally bump into the hospital director. Just a few seconds later, he collapsed. Coincidentally, Dr. Kang was also protesting there. He ran over to check and caught a glimpse of Hornclaw. Perhaps he understood what had happened. Meanwhile, Director Sun came to Hornclaw's house to assign the mission of killing Dr. Kang, as he was suspected of murdering the hospital director. The client even requested the assassin to act in front of Dr. Kang's daughter. Hornclaw asked for the client's identity, but Director Sun refused to disclose it. I wondered why he didn't assign the mission to Seok Jin. He said the intermediary requested someone with more experience, so he chose me. That night, Hornclaw went to ask Hei-Woo about the client. Hei-Woo pulled out a knife to resist, but was easily subdued by Hornclaw. It turned out the hospital director's son insisted that Dr. Kang had killed his mother, so he paid a large sum to hire them for revenge. Hei-Woo felt it was a bit suspicious, because the director's son was wearing a fake watch. But director's son said, since the client had paid, they should just do their job. Thanks to the information Hei-Woo provided, Hornclaw found him at a casino. I held a knife to his nose, and only then did he confess that someone had hired him for this job. Hornclaw then forced him to call that person. It turned out that person was Seok-jin. He showed no surprise at all, and even said that Dr. Kang was about to die. Hornclaw immediately sped to Dr. Kang's house. At this moment, he had just returned to his apartment complex. He stepped into the elevator with a delivery person whose helmet completely covered their face. Hornclaw ran there with all her strength. This moment was exactly like the time I discovered Ji-woo going for revenge alone. I was extremely worried, only able to pray that Dr. Kang was not yet in danger. Over 40 years ago, when I arrived, Ji-woo was gravely injured and died permanently. This time, I had envisioned the worst-case scenario. Who knew Dr. Kang would emerge safely? The delivery person even left a bag of food labeled mudang to mock Hornclaw. After Dr. Kang went inside, Seok-jin revealed himself. He asked if I was scared. He said this wasn't even the real battle yet. I couldn't retire that easily. Seok-jin confidently declared that I couldn't defeat him because I had something to protect while he had nothing to lose. Suddenly, two girls holding bouquets sat down at the table next to him. Seok-jin immediately began to sneeze continuously. An idea flashed in Hornclaw's mind. I once knew a boy with such a pollen allergy. I went home and rummaged through my files. Finally, Hornclaw found the case file of an incident that happened 25 years ago. The target of that mission was a middle-aged man with a son around 10 years old. Hornclaw had disguised herself as a maid to infiltrate the target's home. Then one day, the opportunity arose. I took a hammer and struck the man on the head. At that very moment, his son returned home and witnessed the horrifying scene. That child turned out to be Seok-jin. Hornclaw prepared a lot of food for Mudang. Then I prepared an escape rope from inside the house. This time, I wasn't sure if I would return. I told Mudang not to sit there and starve to death, even if it had to find a new owner or scavenge for food. It had to keep living. I decided to undertake one final bug extermination mission: eliminate the drug traffickers that Director Sun was too afraid to touch. That evening, Hornclaw went to a nightclub and identified the drug lord. He mistook me for a rival assassin sent to kill him. The two quickly engaged in combat. But the drug lord was no match for Hornclaw. Just as I was about to finish him off, his henchmen suddenly rushed in to save him. Someone must have tipped them off. Hornclaw first suspected. Hei-Woo! I broke through the encirclement and burst out of the bar, using the chaos to take down each one. But when I called Director Sun for help, he revealed his true colors. He was the one who had tipped them off. Although surrounded by gangsters, Hornclaw coldly took them down one by one. But as I tried to escape, I was struck and fell to the ground. The boss smashed a beer bottle over my head in a fit of rage, then ordered his men to throw my body into a deep pit at the construction site. It turned out Director Sun had been receiving money from the mafia for a long time. The boss ordered his men to pour dirt on Hornclaw, burying me alive. Fortunately, Hei-Woo had eavesdropped on Director Sun's phone call. She secretly tracked their location and sent a message to Seok-jin. He immediately rushed to the construction site and easily took down the guards without much effort. When he saw the half-filled pit, Seok-jin frantically started digging. Fortunately, he found Hornclaw's hand and pulled me out. The boss tried to attack from behind, but I killed him. It turned out that before leaving, Hornclaw had given instructions to Hei-Woo. If anything happened to me, Hei-Woo was to inform Seok-jin. After saving Hornclaw, he brought me home safely. Then, I invited him into the dining room. Seok-jin asked why I did this job. Hornclaw recounted, when I was little, I was so hungry that I secretly stole some wild ginseng from a neighbor's garden, not knowing it was rare mountain ginseng. My family had to pay compensation, went bankrupt, and were driven away. I had to work as a servant everywhere, enduring beatings, abandonment, and constantly fleeing. Everyone said Hornclaw would rather die. They called me the most useless daughter in the world. Then, at 16, I met someone who treated me like family, giving me food, shelter, and a job. For the first time, someone told me I was useful. He taught me to become an assassin, believing our work was sacred. We were saving the world, even if no one knew. Seok-jin confessed that he also once had someone he considered family, even though that person was only with him for a short time. Both he and Hornclaw clearly remembered what happened 25 years ago. I came to work as a maid in Seok-jin's house. and then killed his father. I knew the reason he saved me was to take revenge with his own hands. Suddenly, Seok-jin felt his vision blurring. I had put something in his drink, and not long after he passed out. Hornclaw drove Seok-jin to a cliff. I turned back to look at him unconscious and said, "See you in hell." Then I pressed the accelerator, sending the car and him plunging into the lake, while I jumped out just before the edge. Hornclaw reported to Director's son that I had killed Seok-jin. When he replied rudely, I immediately subdued him. Previously, I had brought him into the company only because his father was a long-time member. After that, Hornclaw stepped outside and told Hae-woo to burn all the documents and leave. Meanwhile, Henny was performing on stage at school. As soon as she finished her part, she saw someone and happily ran off. Dr. Kang couldn't find his daughter, and as he panicked, he received a message from someone. At this moment, Hornclaw also arrived. When Dr. Kang grabbed my shoulder, I struck him across the face. He showed me the message on his phone. It turned out Seok-jin was still alive. As the car sank into the lake, he had regained consciousness and managed to escape in time. He revealed he had kidnapped Henny and told me to go to Happiness Park if I wanted to save her. Dr. Kang wanted to call the police, but I told him absolutely not to. Hornclaw would go rescue the girl herself. He had no other choice but to trust me. Dr. Kang realized that all this had happened because he had saved the wrong person. But he had no regrets, because it was what he had to do. Hornclaw could only bow her head in gratitude and apology. That night, I prepared my guns, sharpened my knives, and got ready for the final battle to the death. Before leaving, Hornclaw intended to say goodbye to Mudang, but the dog had passed away. Early the next morning, Hornclaw drove to the amusement park, as arranged with Seok-jin. He had hired a whole team of mercenaries to deal with me. As soon as I arrived, a sniper greeted me with a few shots. 2 men approached my car, only to discover the body of one of their comrades inside. By then, Hornclaw had stealthily climbed to another position. A fierce gunfight erupted. I quickly shot down each mercenary, then climbed to the top floor to eliminate the sniper. After that, I rappelled down, taking out many more. The way Hornclaw dealt with these young, battle-hardened mercenaries showed why I was called a legend. After clearing out the entire team, I finally spotted Seok-jin in the opposite building. Only he and Lieutenant Lee, the mercenary leader, remained. They used Henny as a hostage, forcing Hornclaw to drop her weapons. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Lee was furious with Seok-jin over his dead comrades. Hornclaw seized the opportunity to shoot Lee in the arm. In a fit of rage, he mercilessly beat me until I grabbed his leg and stabbed him. Seok-jin ordered Lee to flee while he stayed behind to deal with Hornclaw. I picked up a gun, but Seok-jin held a knife to Henny's neck, forcing me to drop the gun again. After another beating, he threatened to throw Henny off the building. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Lee crawled to a car and pressed a remote. The car exploded immediately. Seok-jin never intended for him to leave alive. Hornclaw coldly stated that Seok-jin had made a mistake. If you keep treating others like insects, then eventually you will become an insect yourself. Hearing this, he released the girl and lunged at me, intending to end everything. The battle was brutal. Seok-jin was careless and was stabbed in the thigh. He immediately retaliated by stabbing me in the exact same spot. He mocked me, saying, "So this is all the legendary assassin can do?" He said that the consequences Hornclaw was facing today were due to the seeds I myself had sown, but he was different. He was a man of his word. Hornclaw still didn't understand what promise he was talking about, which only angered him more. Suddenly, Seok-jin realized I was stalling for time, giving Henny a chance to roll away and escape. He lunged at me, intending to kill me, but I parried the attack and rolled over. With my other hand, Hornclaw stabbed him directly in the chest. The final battle was over. Unexpectedly, Seok-jin said that this time he had won, because he would die before me. 25 years ago, when Hornclaw worked as a maid, I often played games with Seok-jin in my free time. He didn't know how to swallow pills, so I ground them into powder for him, then gave him candy to mask the bitter taste. His mother had passed away early, and his father was always busy with work, so Seok-jin lacked affection. Worse still, his father had an erratic temper and often beat him, scolding him for being weak. It was Hornclaw who stopped him, comforting the boy that tomorrow would be better, and one day, he would be stronger than his father. Back then, little Seok-jin regarded Hornclaw as the only family he had. I was a warm light in his dark world. One day, Seok-jin went to school but remembered he had forgotten something at home. When he ran back to get it, he accidentally witnessed a horrifying scene. His father was dead, and Hornclaw was about to jump out the window to escape. Seok-jin begged to go with me, but I told him, "Next time, when you're a little older, I'll take you with me." And just like that, the only person who had ever treated Seok-jin kindly also left him behind. That memory became a lifelong psychological scar for him. It transformed Seok-jin into an assassin just like Hornclaw, driven by both a desire for revenge and a desperate need for my recognition and attention. At this moment, Hornclaw finally remembered everything. Many years ago, Seok-jin had begged me to take him to Happiness Park because all his friends had gone there and boasted about it afterward. That's why he had forced me to come to this place. A tear rolled down Seok-jin's cheek. This time, he was the one who left me first. Finally, everything was over. Hornclaw went to a temple to pray for Ji-woo and Seok-jin. I did not retire. Instead, I continued my bug extermination mission. My next target was a priest, who preached morality but abused his power to molest innocent young girls. This time, I didn't kill him. Instead, I cut off the instrument he used to commit his crimes and gouged out his eyes. Then, I collected his catechisms and diaries as evidence. As long as this world still has depraved individuals,